Welcome to the week 2 go-to training session. So this is the second session out of 4 that we're going to hold this month. Today's session is mostly going to focus on, we'll get into the essay that's due this coming Sunday, but I'll actually spend probably most of the time talking about research because there is a research requirement for this essay, and also issues of APA formats. And actually, if you want to prepare something in advance, if you have Microsoft Word installed on your machine, you might want to go ahead and just open a blank document because I'm going to a bit later actually walk you through the steps of how to set up the paper in terms of layout. And if you follow along, you'll basically have that all set up so you can hit the ground running and just start typing away when it comes time to write your essay. Um, if you don't have Microsoft Word, you're allowed to use another tool like Google Docs. Microsoft does have what's called OneDrive. I'm going to go ahead and type that in the chat. Um, OneDrive is basically Microsoft's free online suite of tools. So all you need to do is sign up, and then you can have access to things like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. Because it is pretty important that you not only follow the rules for APA layout and citation. We'll get into citation as well during this session, but that you're handing in things in doc format. So if you don't have Microsoft Word, you have alternatives to do the same thing. I'll be using Microsoft Word when we get to the walkthrough portion of this session. And if you don't have these things at the ready, you can always just watch the video. Remember, this is recorded and archived, and you can always just skip ahead to that part of the session where I do the walkthrough. Okay, but let's back up a little bit and talk. Actually, let me show something first. Um, okay, I was really happy to see that people were doing the McGraw-Hill interactive modules. Here you're getting a brief glimpse into what I see on my end. So I see lots of green bars. That's awesome. That means people were doing the modules to 100% completion. I won't scroll all the way down because I don't want to show the few people who didn't get to 100%, but most of you did. So keep that up, okay? I love seeing these green bars because again, these are easy points. So just take advantage of those interactive modules because all you need to do is complete them. You can see some people it took around an hour. Most people, I'd say, it took around an hour. Some people were able to finish in 30 minutes. But don't worry, if it takes you longer than an hour, if it takes you 2 hours, that's fine. It's not a race. Okay, you just have to complete them. And if it takes you longer, it just means that you're probably getting even more benefit out of it because you're really having to focus on the questions and answering them correctly and completing the session to 100%. So anyway, good job on that. That was awesome to see. I was also happy to see that the discussion board activity that ended on Sunday, where you guys took a stab at writing an introduction paragraph, the opening paragraph for what will be your essay. If you have things to improve, if you need to make revisions, you should be doing so. Don't just assume that your introduction is good to go. But hopefully you've made a decent enough attempt that you have a working introduction paragraph, even if it needs some tweaking. So the first paragraph of your essay might be written already, so that's good news. I was also happy to see that people were participating pretty strongly. Um, Even things got passionate on one of the boards, and that's fine too. I would much rather see people. I mean, I did make some cautions to people to remind them that we need to stay focused on the writing task and giving each other feedback on one another's writing more than getting caught up in the passion that sometimes comes about because of the subject matter of a student's given topic. But I'd much rather see people participating and showing interest, even if I have to sometimes put in a small caution, than the other way around, which is that some months people are just not getting involved, or they're just writing generic things on the discussion board, and they're just rubber stamping each other's work. And I don't like to see that. So I'll always take the risk of people passionately getting involved. But anyway, that was really, really nice to see. Okay, so let's get into, we have a lot to cover tonight, so let's get into it. This session is titled Essay Research and APA. How many people here have worked with APA style before? A lot of you maybe have some familiarity with MLA because that's the convention that's used in a lot of classes, including English classes if you took an English class in high school. Sometimes people have little familiarity with APA, sometimes they have a lot. So I'm just trying to get some sense if this is brand new or if people have encountered it before. The good news is APA and MLA, I mean, yeah, there are a different set of rules governing each style system, but they're essentially the same in terms of the logic behind them. Basically, a set of rules for how to format things, how to cite things, how to list your sources at the end of the paper. So the specific details change, but the logic behind each is really similar. Okay, so let's talk. Oh, okay. Quickly, here are the items for today. Actually, I'll save this first part for later, the actual showing of the assignment sheet for the essay. But I do want to start talking about research, and then we'll get into APA because these are two rich enough topics that we'll have to spend some time with them. But before you begin, yeah, I mean, I think all of you checked my feedback on your week 1 go-to quiz, but if for some reason you didn't, please do so. Um, I got through a lot of them on Friday, but I needed to finish up over the weekend. But all of you got feedback where I responded to the topic that you pitched, and I either said, great, okay, full steam ahead, or maybe I said it's looking pretty good, but you might want to consider this. And for a few people, I suggested you still need to find a topic. So if you haven't already, refine your topic, because this topic is going to be the one you're using all month. Okay, so it's pretty important that we get a working topic in place. Okay, so let's talk about research. There is a research requirement for this paper. You need a minimum of one source, but lots of you will go well past one source. One source probably, unless it's just a terrific source that has so much information that you can either quote or cite or rely upon, most of you will probably go beyond that. But I want to talk about the nature of research, okay? What research means, at least to me. For me, research is like joining a discussion or a conversation. You might want to keep that in mind, that research is like joining a discussion or conversation, because it might show up as a quiz question later. Anytime I say might means that it will. I have no idea why I tell people the quiz questions are coming in advance, but try to keep that in mind. But the point I want to make here, though, is that I was young once. I was a student once. I have to go back a long time to remember those days, but I remember assignments where you had to do research. And sometimes students hear that and think, oh, research. I just need to run somewhere and find a quick fact to throw in my paper. Or, oh, I guess he's talking about quoting something, so I'm going to go find a quotation to stick in my paper. That's not research, okay? That's you running to find something to throw in the paper to meet the minimum standards. And I get it. Like, we're all busy, especially Full Sail students who typically sometimes have families, full-time jobs, other responsibilities. It's difficult to carve out time to devote just endless hours to assignments. And I'm not saying that you have to necessarily do that, but you should be doing more than just running to find a quick fact or a quick quote, okay? Because that's not research. Research is like joining a conversation. Think about it like this. Imagine that there's a dinner party going on, okay? So yeah, a party, not a keg party, not a wild crazy party, a somewhat adult party, where there's a gathering of people, perhaps pockets of groups of people engaged in conversation. Chances are you're probably not going to just jump into any given conversation. You'll probably wait. You'll probably sit back, eavesdrop a bit, and then when you're comfortable, when you feel confident enough that you know what's going on and that you know your place in the conversation, that's when you'll jump in and contribute. So research works pretty much the same way. It's just here, it's not a literal conversation that's taking place in real time. Here, the conversation is often taking place on the page. Every article that you read that relates to your topic, every piece of information that you find is the equivalent of you listening in on a conversation that has already been taking place long before you entered the room. Most of you have topics. Maybe you're writing about I don't know, the low royalty rates paid out by streaming music companies, or one of you is dealing with female body image in animated films, right? Whatever your topic is, people have written about this. People have spoken about this. As a matter of fact, one of the requirements is your topic has to be rooted in something real and concrete. And there's a good reason for that. And part of it is that it's much easier to research something when it is a real and concrete issue, because chances are other people have written about it. So that's sort of conversation like. You'll read, and then when you're comfortable, because you've done enough sort of exploration of the topic, then you'll be ready to join the conversation. which in this case is you writing your essay. So really what I'm asking you to do is sort of become mini experts in your topics. Okay. Again, I realize you don't have, I mean, most people would take years to become experts in a certain topic, or they'd have to spend an entire semester doing research to become true. I'm asking you to become mini experts, to find the 3, 4, 5 articles that really enrich your understanding of whatever it is you're exploring. Because then, with that mini expertise, you can then write with authority. Okay, we talked about this last go-to session, that fancy Greek word, ethos, meaning authority or credibility. Yes, it's established by the types of information you include in your essay, but it's also established by your stance as the writer. This should seem like common sense. Sometimes we just intuitively know by reading something that we feel confidence in the person who's writing it versus something else where we don't feel that confidence. So if you take the time and think about research as the equivalent of joining in a discussion or conversation, you'll then be armed with the sort of authority to write your paper and be convincing. If you just run to find a quick fact to throw in your paper, a quick quote, then the result is that it will the paper may seem like it's completely written off the top of your head, which could be problematic. I mean, some people can get away with that, right? I mean, Steven Spielberg could probably write a terrific essay on filmmaking and not have to refer to anybody else. Stephen Hawking could write a terrific essay on physics, right? Quantum physics, without having to rely on anybody else. But most of us can't get away with that. I can't get away with it. So this is why it's important to do research, so that we're fully engaging with this conversation that's already been ongoing, so that we then have the authority to write about it with convincing style. Okay, let me take a sip from my water. So, actually, let me pause real quick. We'll get into APA in a second. Let me show where you need to go for research, because at least one source needs to come from the Full Sail Library databases. You all should know how to get there, because remember, you took DGL. There are a couple projects where you have to go to the library database, find articles, evaluate those articles for credibility. Remember all that? In case you've forgotten, let's see. I should bookmark it. I'm always forgetting to bookmark. I'm just going to go to Full Sail Connect. And it's always this one. I think it's this one. Full Sail University login. Nope, it's not that one. I always have to do a guessing game to figure out which one gets me in. There, that's the one. Okay, so I'm in Full Sail Connect, right? And you can browse the organization, but it's also listed on the left right here at the bottom. So I'll click on library, and I'll keep clicking on 10 million things to get in. Here we are on the main library page. If you scroll to the bottom, you'll see, right, research databases. That's where we need to go. Eric brings up a good question. He hopes the university has references on routing, ROMs, and ramifications. Yeah, Eric, we'll have to talk about workarounds. I mean, look for those things. You might be surprised and find out. But one trick I have is that sometimes you can look for sort of tertiary or, issues that are related, even if they're not 100% connected, but they help understand your overall take on the subject. So maybe there's something related to smartphones that isn't directly about routing, but helps solidify your knowledge of things. And by the way, one source has to come from the Full Sail Library database. Other sources can come from trusted sources online. Okay, so think back to DGL. Trusted means we're not visiting someone's random blog page and quoting from that. Or sometimes I go to a student source and it's little more than like advertising for a product, but on that product page, there's like a quote from someone who's praising the product, and then the student takes that quote. That's not a credible source. But anything from it doesn't have to be super academic. Anything from CNN to Forbes to the New York Times to USA Today, anything that basically has levels of editorship, meaning that the information is going through several different people before it gets published, because it needs to be accurate. Those are credible sources. Okay, so we're in the databases. You have a whole bunch to search through, and you can try different ones. Here's Business Source Complete, which will limit the focus to business-related articles. Most of you will start here with Academic Search Complete because it's probably the most comprehensive. I'm going to go in there. And once we're in, you'll see you'll have like 3 different search boxes. And here's your chance to do a dedicated search. So let's go with my topic, the one that I posted to the board, the one where I'm pretending to be a game design student at Full Sail. Remember, my topic has to do with problematic representations of women in video games. So I always forget what I need to put in. I'm going to put gender representation in video games. I could make it much simpler than that. I could probably do like women in video games or something like that. And then we get a bunch of results. To make sure that we're only getting good results, we should click this little full text guy here to the left, because that will just mean that only articles that are truly available come up. Like here, the first one, selling gender, associations of box art representation. Like that might be interesting. It doesn't seem like it's about the games themselves, but there might be something about box art and the way that women are portrayed on the covers of games that's interesting. But this article is not available. Okay, it's not here. That's something frustrating. Is not every result is truly accessible. You need to find something that either has a PDF file or an HTML file, which I'm not seeing here, but okay. It needs to be either PDF or HTML. So if I click full text, I'll be limited to only things that are truly available. Okay, and you have to look through it because you'll get things that are on topic and some things are off, like this first one, navigation experience and mental representations of the environment. I don't want that. But here's one, big breasts and bad guys, depictions of gender and race in video games. Okay, that sounds interesting, right? And if I click on the PDF, up comes the article. And then I'd have to check to make sure the article is worthwhile. I would need to read it or at least skim it to begin with to see if it's useful or not. I'm not just going to take the first thing that I found and automatically assume that that's my research. Okay, research can take time. It might take you half an hour, 2 hours to find decent articles that help you understand your topic better. Okay, but like I said, one source needs to come from the Full Sail Library database, and you can go crazy. You can find 2, you can find 3. That's great. You can have additional sources come from online. So I've already done a Google search in advance. I just put in the words gender representations in video games, and look what pops up. Gender representation in video games, Wikipedia. Is Wikipedia always terrible? You hear so much condemnation and hatred of it. Like, never go to Wikipedia. Don't you dare go to Wikipedia. Wikipedia is awful. Does it have any usefulness? And can anybody explain why it might be useful? I admit that you should be cautious. You shouldn't be quoting anything from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is not research. Jarrell says as long as it has information that is credible. Okay, but how do we determine that? Because haven't you come across Wikipedia articles that feel like they're written by some 12-year-old in his garage? Okay, good. Jarrell mentions references. Yes, that's where Wikipedia can be helpful. This one seems pretty well written. Like I can just sort of tell by the language of it that it feels like the person or people, because Wikipedia tends to be team written, right, by lots of people who just decide to contribute to an entry. It seems like it's written by thoughtful people, but still, I don't know who wrote it. So I'm not going to quote anything that directly appears in Wikipedia. But yes, if I scroll down to the very end, right, I get all these references, footnotes. I can search through this to see if there's any good stuff. Okay, so I'm not against Wikipedia used in that way, but we don't quote or cite Wikipedia itself. And I'm going to use this in a little bit to show how to create references for your references page. But here's an article from Slate. Like Slate, that's a pretty well-known and respected magazine, online magazine, right? So lots of things can fit. USA Today, Slate. I don't care if it's a little bit progressive or a little bit conservative. Avoid the obviously ridiculously biased stuff that's out there. But respected journals that are pretty much known by most thinking people work fine. Jarrell says, never heard of Slate. It's pretty famous. It's that new group of pretty much strictly online publications that have sort of bigger readerships than traditional publications, to be honest. I'm going to come back to this one because I do want to show how to cite things in APA format. So that's your goal here, okay? You have to find at least one source from the Full Sail library databases, and then you can find additional sources from online. And understand that it might take you time to find some good sources. Like mine, where's the library? Like my topic is easy. My topic's so easy I can find things in the Full Sail library database pretty quickly. Um, some of you might take a bit more time, and you'll have to be creative with your keyword searches, right? If you just type in a full sentence that's just a restatement of your topic, you might not come up with anything. But if you break it down, like I did, gender, representation, video games, and if that didn't result in anything, I would try different terms, women, video games, or sexism, video games, or, try different combinations to trigger different results. Strict online searches tend to be a little bit easier because we're all used to Googling, and Googling comes up with a million results. Jarrell mentions Rolling Stone. Yeah, she wasn't saying it in this sense, I don't think, but Rolling Stone, that's a trusted source. So yeah, a whole range of sources count as credible, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk about APA format, right? APA style. So we're talking about style, not this woman's style, although she has fantastic style. But we're not talking about that kind of style, fashion style. We're talking about APA. So what does APA cover? Basically, it covers three broad areas. Issues of layout and format. So we're talking about paragraphing, font, page numbers, what's called a header. In-text citations. So anytime any information appears within the body of your paper that doesn't come from you, it doesn't have to be exactly quoted, even if you're not quoting something, but you're sharing a fact or statistic. If it doesn't come from you, it needs to be cited right there and then in the paper. And then there's the end of the paper references page. In MLA, it's called works cited. In APA, it's called references. Okay, that's where we list our sources in full. So I'm going to show you how to do this first step right here, the layout and format stuff. Before I do that, I'm going to type another thing into the chat. There's this website called projectapa.info. You might want to jot that down or remember or commit it to memory. It's a really useful website because it was created by a fellow Full Sail instructor, not me. But it's really helpful because it mostly covers the more common things that you'll have to encounter in APA, so it doesn't hit you with the 10 billion sort of exceptions that you'll rarely have to deal with it in APA. It deals with the biggies. And you can see, there's a little thing here for in-text citations, the references page, and you also get this really useful sample paper, APA. It wasn't coming up before because I think I have too many things running. There, okay, it's up. See, you get a sample of what an APA style paper looks like. Right, so this is a really useful source. But what we're going to do right now is I'm going to walk you through these steps, okay, to get your paper set up in APA format. So if you have your Microsoft Word document open, get ready to follow along. And I should have opened up Word in advance. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about citation generators a little bit later. I don't have a problem with citation generators, but they do make lots of mistakes. So I'm going to show that in real time in just a second. I think citation generators are a fine place to begin, but you still need to know the APA format rules so you can fix all the small errors that generators make. Generators are nothing more than programs, so they just chug and plug. They take the information from your article and spit it out, and sometimes they spit it out with accuracy, and sometimes they don't. Okay, so I have a blank Microsoft Word document open. I'm using the Mac version of Word. So if you're using the PC version, your functions might be in slightly different locations, but you should be able to find them pretty easily. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create our header. Okay, the header is this top, I'd say inch or so of the page, and you just double click to get into it. And first what we're going to do is type the words running head. Let me blow this up a little bit and make it even larger. And by the way, even I forget the particulars sometimes. So I'm going to go to Project APA info and make sure that I'm doing this right. Yes, running ahead. Okay, colon. And then in all caps, we're going to put the title of our essay. I'm just going to call this English PSA paper. Please come up with a better title on your own. I'm just coming up with a generic title right now. We also have to insert page numbers. So you can do this from the menu items here. I actually think it's better to do it the old-fashioned way and go up top and just click Insert Page Numbers, because then you get the option of where you want it to appear, and it automatically puts it where we want it, which is in the top right-hand corner. So I'm just going to click OK. And you can see a page number appears. And as we continue on to new pages, page 2, page 3, page 4, the number is just going to automatically update itself. Okay, so there we go. Header, done. Easy peasy. Next, we need to hit return and get to approximately the middle of the page. You can just do this visually, right? You can just eyeball it. We can fix it in just a second. And we have to put 3 things. And I'm going to go back to double check, because even I need to remember. Title, name, university. Okay, so I'm going to put those things in. My name, oops, not in all caps. My name, the title of my paper, English PSA paper, and the university. While we're here, I'm going to double space this. Okay, in my version of Word, this little up and down arrow thing represents spacing. I'm not sure why that would automatically mean spacing, but it does. So I'm going to change this to 2.0. And then I'm going to click on the little align center function to put it in the middle of the page. And I'm just going to eyeball things and see if it's more or less in the center of the first page. It looks like it needs to be bumped down a little bit. There, that looks like it's about center. So good. Next, I'm going to keep hitting enter until I get to the very first line of the second page. Once I get to the very first line of the second page, I'm going to stop. Okay, there I am. Done. Stop. I'm going to retype my title. Not in all caps. Okay, and notice too, same, we're using one consistent font size for the entire document. Okay, and my title, I'm not bolding it. I'm not putting in all caps. I'm not underlining it. I'm not italicizing it. Okay. Uniformity is a big thing in APA format, that we're using one clean, consistent style from top to bottom. Okay, I'm going to hit enter once, because remember, our paper is already double spaced. I'm going to click over here, the left align button, so we're back on the left side of the page, because we don't want the entire paper to be centered like a poem. I'm going to indent by hitting tab, because the first line of a new paragraph always is indented. And then I can start typing my paper. My paper goes here. Yay. Okay. I'm going to copy that because I want to show something while I'm talking. Okay, so you're typing away, right? You're writing your paper. You won't be filling it up with gibberish like I'm doing here. Notice that if you set up everything in advance, the double spacing, you just keep typing. For most of you, you already know this, but there are some people who aren't so comfortable with technology, so they don't double space in advance, and they start treating the word processing program almost like a typewriter, meaning when they get to the end of the page, they start hitting enter manually, and that just creates lots of formatting problems. So get everything set up in advance. But once you reach the end of a paragraph, we hit enter once, okay? Not twice, not 10 times, just once, and we can keep on going. Okay. Oops. And let's say that we're on page 3, page 4, page 5. Let's pretend we're nearing the end of our essay. Okay, so I'm done. My paper is finished. We hit enter until we get to the very first line of a new page. Okay, and as soon as we get there, we stop. Boom, I'm there. And I'm going to center the word references. Okay, it's not written in all caps. It doesn't say references page. It doesn't say works cited. It doesn't say bibliography. It just says the word references. And this is where we're going to list our sources in alphabetical order. And here I'm going to show the citation generator, at least the one that's provided in the Full Sail Library database in real time. So let's go back to that article I found, Big Breasts and Bad Guys. Okay, let's say I love this article. I know I'm going to use it. The great thing about the Full Sail Library database is over to the right here, you have this little yellow looking page, which is the citation generator. So if I click on this, it gives me a bunch of different reference types, MLA, AMA, but we need APA, okay? And here's the thing I'd like to point out. Citation generators love to make little mistakes. So sometimes they'll put the author's name in all caps. That's not correct. Here, this is the title of the article, but it's not correct either. It's following MLA rules for capitalization. APA rules, we only capitalize it. Here's how I should explain it. It follows the capitalization rules of normal sentences. So the first letter of the first word gets capitalized. The rest of it just appears like a normal sentence. An exception for words that begin after a colon. Okay, but all these need to be put in lowercase because this is not APA format. You also have to check here. It has a DOI number, which is a dot, which stands for Digital Object Identifier. If it has a DOI number, you're done. I have everything I need. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because I have no problem with citation generators if we can fix the small errors that it makes. And I'm going to go back to my references page and paste that in. Okay. And I'm getting the pinwheel of death because my machine is running slow. Microsoft Word has a cool function where I can just make sure that the text matches the font of the rest of the paper by clicking Match Destination Format. If not, you could just highlight the entire paper and make sure that it's in the same format. Eric says, so if the title has multiple words in caps, we still divorce? Yes, because sometimes all caps is a little bit awkward. Like it's pretty rare that the article title really wants to have words in all caps. I mean, if it's something like I don't know, an article on the military and the word DEFCON appears or the word AWOL appears, that would be in all caps. Yeah, change it all to just normal sentence structure. References follow reverse rules for indentation. So if you look at a typical paragraph, the first line is indented, but other lines are not. The references page entries, it's the complete opposite. The first line is not indented, but any additional lines are. So I'm going to indent this guy. Boom. Okay. Now, let me see if I can find another example really, really quickly. Even though this article is completely unrelated, let me just use it as an example. I want to find one that doesn't have a DOI number, so I can show you how to do that. I'm going to start closing some windows because I think things are running hot on my end. Okay, let's see what this guy comes up with. That has a DOI number too. This happened last time. Like I couldn't find one that didn't have a DOI. Let's try this one. Click on the site. 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 Oh, it has a DOI number too. That's actually a good sign. If you keep finding things that have DOI numbers, then it's super easy. You don't have to worry about anything. But I want to show what you need to do if you don't have that. I'll give up in just a second because this is tremendously boring to watch. Site. Okay, good. Here's an example, right? Here's our APA reference, but it doesn't have that DOI number. So first, I'm going to copy this and bring it over. Okay. I think that person's name was DE, so it comes before DI, so I'm going to put that first. Oh, no, it was DR. Nuts. Okay. Oh, I forgot. I need to fix all this stuff, right? So fix all those capitalization issues. Bad guys, depictions of gender and race in video games. I need to do the same thing with the second one here, right? So I fixed all the Capitalization issues. Now there's no DOI number for this second one. Okay, so what do I need to put in here? All we need to do is at the very end of this reference, we put the words retrieved from. We go back to that article, and on the right, you'll see this little chain link looking symbol, which is called a permalink. That's what I need. I need the permalink. Because if you go up here and just grab the URL, I'll get an error. But the permalink will take me right to your article. So I'm going to copy the permalink over. And boom. Okay. So pretty easy. And you have all this information in your McGraw-Hill chapters. So it covers this as well. For example, let's say you find something online. Where's that Slate article I found earlier? How to Fight Sexism in Gaming, Get Men to Play Female Characters by Amanda Hess. So we have everything we need. We have a title. We have an author. We have a year, 2013. I can just start putting this together on my own, right? So Hess, last name, first initial. It was written in 2013. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab that title, How to Fight Sexism in Gaming, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to paste that in. Make sure that it matches the font style. Fix all those capitalization issues. All right. And for this article, because it comes from online, we're going to do the same thing. Oh, and we're going to put the publication, which in this case is Slate. Publication titles do get italicized, by the way. And we're going to do the same thing, put the words retrieve from, if I could spell the word retrieved, and here we will just put in the URL. Okay, we're going to go up here, grab it, stick it in, boom. Okay, so look how quickly I did that. True, I know APA rules, so it's easier for me to do. But look, even without a citation generator, I created a perfect APA entry for that article I found online. So this is what your paper should look like. By the way, it drives me crazy when I see green squiggly lines. So I'm gonna get rid of all that because it drives me nuts. Okay, right? So there's a references page. Nice, clean. Later, I would get rid of this being highlighted. I don't like seeing that either. But okay, not so difficult, right? I mean, it seems nitpicky. It seems like you have a lot to concentrate on, but I'm telling you, it's not that difficult. Remember projectapa.info, which I just put in the chat, so if you need to scroll up to find it again, you could use that as a source. You also have a source, and it's uploaded as one of your assets. It's called the APA Basics PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so you have this asset. When you go into the assignment, the actual essay assignment, you have this PowerPoint presentation. It's like 50 slides long. It was also created by a fellow instructor, not me, but she put amazing effort into this. It explains what APA is, what APA seeks to do. But what's really important is that it covers the nitpicky stuff that you might have questions about. We'll get to in-text citations in just a second. But for example, what if your article has no author? Well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't explained in-text citations yet. But you would just use the first three letters of that article title in your in-text citation. What if the publication has no date? Use the abbreviation ND. Let me get to the references page because that's what we've been talking about so far. Okay, same thing. What if there's no author? We begin with the article title. Okay, if there's no author, we just begin with the article title. What if there's no date? Then we put in parentheses the abbreviation ND. Here's my advice. This presentation is about 50 slides long, but it would only take you about maybe 30 minutes to go through. If you spend the 30 minutes with this presentation, you will be APA experts. Like, you won't be confused. You won't be worried about whether the citation generator is making mistakes or not, because you'll understand how APA functions. So you have like 10 gazillion resources for APA. Take advantage of them. Okay, let's go back to our presentation, my presentation. In-text citations. Basically, any quotation, fact, or information that comes from research needs to be cited. Okay, it needs to be cited right there and then in your paper. And there are a couple different ways to handle it. Both are correct. And this part is a little bit more confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it as carefully as I can. Let's imagine that you have a perfect quotation that you'd like to use in your paper. You have two options. You can mention the author's name at the beginning of the sentence, and as soon as his or her name appears, put the year of publication in parentheses. So, according to Smith, 2008, then deliver your quotation. And then once the quotation is finished, you put a page or paragraph number in parentheses. That means the page or paragraph number where the quotation appeared. Or you can save everything for the end. You can find your own way to phrase things, like a recent study states, and then deliver your quotation, and then put everything at the end: author's last name, year of publication, page or paragraph number, okay? Separated by commas. The reason I say page or paragraph number is because sometimes you'll encounter articles online that don't have page numbers. The stuff you find through the Full Sail Library database, because it originally appeared in journals, they'll typically have page numbers. But a one-page article that's pretty lengthy, but it's just one page that you have to keep scrolling down to read, doesn't have different page numbers. You just count the paragraphs and tell me which paragraph that quotation appeared in. If you're not quoting something directly, but the information still comes from research, you follow the same rules, okay? So you can put the author's last name and a year of publication in parentheses at the beginning of your sentence, and then deliver your information. So according to Smith, 2008, American students are underperforming in comparison to their world's peers, and then put a page or paragraph number at the end. Okay, so we're pretending here that this information comes from research, but it's entirely in my own language. Okay, it has no similarity to how this information appeared in its original form. I am completely paraphrasing and expressing things in my own words, but because it came from somewhere else, I still need to cite it. That's a big confusion students sometimes have. They think, oh, well, I'm not directly quoting it, so I don't have to cite it. No, anything that comes from research needs to be cited. Or you can find your own way to state things and just save everything for the end: author's last name, year of publication, page or paragraph number. Okay. Some cautions, some things to be careful of in terms of quotation research. First, and this might appear in a quiz question, do not photobomb your research. Okay, your quotations, your facts, your statistics, don't photobomb them. What do I mean by photobomb? You all know what photobombing is, right? When someone either intentionally or unintentionally interrupts a photo because you're snapping away that beautiful picture of your children standing next to Mickey Mouse in Disney World, and boom, some big fat guy wanders into the picture and disrupts things. Or some goofball is trying to be funny and decides to jump in the photo and be silly, right? That's photobombing. When research appears out of the blue, that's the equivalent of photobombing, because as the reader, you're reading the paper thinking, okay, good, 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 and then boom, a quotation appears out of nowhere, or a fact, or a statistic, right? So quotations and research in general needs to be set up. And a good way to make sure that you're setting things up is to use what's called the sandwich technique, right? We set up the quotation, which is like one piece of bread. We deliver the quotation, which is like the meat, or if you're a vegetarian, the veggies or the cheese. And then we follow up the quotation with our own commentary, which is like the other piece of bread. If you're following the sandwich technique, chances are your research will not be photobombed. It won't hit the reader as like a giant surprise. Second, be careful of long quotations, specifically ones that speak entirely for you. Sometimes students come across a terrific passage where the author has expressed things so perfectly the student feels, wow, that's awesome, and I could never word things that well. And so they take that huge passage and just drop it into their paper. That creates a couple problems, right? First of all, if your paper is made up of long passages of quotations, then I'm not really reading your work. I'm reading somebody else's words. Second, as I put in this reminder here, remember, occasional research, I should add, helps support your points, not the other way around, okay? It's not like other people's words are driving the piece and your own words are there just for decoration. Research supports you. Finally, quotations over 40 words need to be put in a special format called block format. It's not difficult. The APA PowerPoint Basics PowerPoint presentation shows how to do it. Project APA.info shows how to do it. Your McGraw-Hill readings show how to do it. It's not difficult, but it does require a special format if you're quoting anything over 40 words. But chances are you probably won't be using long quotations like that anyway. So don't worry too much about that. Do I still have? Hold on, let me go back to this one real quickly. The APA Basics PowerPoint presentation, the one I encouraged you to spend the 30 minutes going through. So this covers in-text citations. So if you think that I've just gone through things too quickly, or some of it's making sense, but some of it's a bit fuzzy, you have these materials to help you, okay? So it reminds you of the essential format, which I just covered. As I said, it tells you what to do for unique situations, like if there's no author for the article, if there's no date for the article, if it's just a one-page article, etc. It covers when you need an in-text citation. Okay. So please spend time. Oh, and it also covers how to integrate quotations or research within your own writing and how to handle that. So you have all this stuff at your fingertips. I always feel bad because there's not enough time in this session or this day or this week to cover all of APA because it's pretty massive, but you have these tools at your fingertips. Which is what I indicate here. I got to get rid of this slide. It's supposed to be a joke. It's my way of apologizing that I can't cover every detail of APA in this session. And for that, I apologize. But you do have these resources that you have that you can turn to. Okay, so you have this essay that's due on Sunday. Let me bring up the assignment sheet. Right, here it is. You can read the details on your own, right? When it's due. We're talking about 2 to 4 pages of writing. That's aside from the APA style cover page and the references page. So if we take those two elements out, there should be 2 to 4 pages of your own text, okay? That's worth 10% of your own grade. You can read through most of this on your own. It will probably be pretty interesting for you to look at the rubric so you're reminded of how you're being graded. So I should see a thesis that ends your introduction paragraph. And again, you should have practiced this already for last week's assignment. Do you have a specific audience that you're targeting with that message? And then issues of content. And look, there are 30 points devoted to APA and research, meaning are you following APA guidelines correctly? And second, are you using research appropriately? So it's a lot of points that you can grab, but it's also a lot of points that you can lose points over, and then grammar and mechanics. But when it comes time, to actually writing the essay, I have advice that's both specific and general. There's no one single way to write a paper, okay? There's freedom in this class. You're allowed to create things pretty much as you wish. But there are some general principles that don't just apply to this assignment, but apply to any piece of writing that you should probably follow. So if you're someone who needs help with organization or putting an essay together, you might take a screenshot of this page or jot down some notes. Andre asks, will we lose points for directly stating an audience? No, you won't. I mean, if you do something awkward like say my audience is gamers, that wouldn't be very natural to appear in an essay. But if you think back to my sample thesis statement, right, the one that I posted to the discussion board for the activity that just ended, right, the exploring your appeal activity. Let me see if I can find my post quickly. Right, remember this? All about Tomb Raider and things. And here was my thesis underlined. My audience does get mentioned here, right? Gamers. Gamers need to write to game publishers and gaming magazines and let their voices be heard. So no, you don't lose points for directly mentioning an audience. I don't think you have to always mention the audience, or maybe there are ways where it can be clear even if it's not stated, but I should be able to read the paper and know who you're targeting. Okay, so basic essay organizational principles, right? We've already done this first step. Hopefully you've done a pretty good job. I'm still grading through the discussions, so look for my feedback tonight or tomorrow. But an introduction paragraph that begins with some sort of opening move, I call a hook, that briefly defines the issue and delivers that thesis, which for this assignment is your call to action, what you're asking a specific audience to do about the problem or issue you've identified. So hopefully you've already got this first bullet point done. After that, you have freedom. Most people spend some time further defining the issue, okay? Using separate paragraphs to make separate points, because it's a little bit odd if a paragraph jumps from point to point. Usually a paragraph focuses on one point the writer wants to make. So with my topic, with problematic representations of women in video games, maybe I would devote a paragraph to how women are making up a larger percentage of gamers than in years past. So why would you want to offend potentially 50% of consumers by having these sort of sexist or outdated or just sort of problematic representations, right? I could make a paragraph about that. Or I could make a paragraph that focuses on examples. Maybe there are 2 or 3 titles that showcase what I'm talking about. Maybe that could be the subject of a specific paragraph. So most people spend 2, 3, however many paragraphs it takes, further defining the issue, right? Because on some level, you need to explain to us the problem. All of you have very unique topics. Like Eric's with us tonight. He's doing something about smartphones and routing. I'm not an expert on this issue. So one of the things I'll be looking for from his paper is that I expect to understand the issue. So most of you will be defining things over a couple paragraphs. Before the paper ends, you'll discuss your call to action in more detail. Okay? So I would write a paragraph about how I'm asking gamers to make their voices heard by writing to game publishers and editors of gaming magazines. And although it seems like a simple thing, like why can't you just say that in a sentence? I could find a way, not by using filler or padding, I could find a way to write at least a short paragraph that explains what my call to action is and why I want to see it done. And then some sort of conclusion that ends the paper on a satisfying note. A lot of this should be pretty basic stuff, right? We know the basic format of essays, or hopefully you got this in a past class. Introduction, body paragraphs that focus on separate points you want to make, conclusion. Here, just make sure that you're defining the issue with some care and that you are devoting time before the essay ends to your actual message. Because that's the point of this, right? The point isn't to write a report or a overview of a problem. It's also to deliver a dedicated message to an audience. So that message needs to appear before the essay finishes. Okay, who's ready for quiz questions? Here they come, fast and furious. Number 1, engaging in research is like participating in a what? Right? I think I got like 2 answers. I said it's like participating in a blank or blank. So either of those responses are fine, or even if you stumble closely to the answer. These questions aren't designed to confuse people or trip people up. And wow, Andre and Terrence are revealing the answers in the quiz. Don't do that. The good news is people who watch this after the fact can't see the chat that's going on. That part doesn't appear in the recording. That's okay, guys. I'm hoping that the other people who are with us tonight already knew that answer. But yeah, it kind of defeats the purpose of quiz questions if we just give the answer. Okay, quiz question number 2. Dropping in a quotation out of nowhere is similar to what social media? Annoyance, kind of like Instagram. Right? I spent some time making that comparison. When research appears out of the blue, it's similar to what social media? Annoyance. Quiz questions 3 and 4 aren't really questions. They're things you have to do. So let me show those. Here's number 3. Find a quality source. By source, I mean article. Okay, find a quality article through the Full Sail Library research database. Give me the title, the author, the publication name, and briefly summarize the article's main focus. Okay, so I'm not looking for like a 10-page summary. Just give me 3 or 4 sentences that explain to me the gist of the article. Okay, so find an article, give me the title, author, name of publication, and briefly summarize it. And yes, it has to be on your topic. Every so often I get like an odd quiz answer that's about U.S. involvement in Afghanistan, and I say, what does this have to do with the music industry? Okay, so you're finding an article on your topic, hopefully one that works for you. Quiz question number 4, which I'm going to show in just a second, builds upon question number 3. And here it is. Once you find that article, okay, create a complete end of the paper reference for this article. Okay, I want you to show me that you can create entries for the references page. And let me make this clear too, because there's always 1 or 2 students who get confused. I'm looking for you to do this, right? Just for one article. You don't have to come up with 3, right? You need to create something like this. Okay, so for that article that you found for quiz question number 3, show me that you can create an APA style references page entry for it. I know that the FSO platform doesn't really allow you to create indents, so just make sure that you're fixing the capitalization issues, make sure that there's either a URL or a permalink included, make sure it has all that stuff. You can actually trick the system into indenting, but it's not difficult, but it's just, I don't care. If you just know that when it comes time to actually hand in the paper, there's indentation. Jarrell wants to see quiz question number 2. Here it is. Dropping in a quotation or any piece of research out of nowhere is similar to what social media annoyance. Those are the 4 quiz questions. So now we'll open things up to questions. I know we covered a lot. I know there was a lot in terms of APA, so I hope some of that made sense. Just remember that you do have lots of sources to use. Your textbook, that APA Basics PowerPoint presentation, the project apa.info website, so you have lots of places to go to help out. No, Eric, I spent some time comparing, when I'm reading a paper and I'm doing just fine, and then boom, a quotation appears out of nowhere. I made a pretty lengthy comparison to what that's like in the online world that we live in. Okay, that was my attempt to be the hip instructor by comparing it to something that you young people know all about. But I can't give the answer. So if for some reason you're confused, just wait for the session to be recorded, skip ahead to that part and get it. It's an easy question. Like, nobody gets it wrong. And Terrence and others are probably sitting on their hands because they're dying to jump in now and show off again what the answer is. But okay, any other questions, guys? Or does anybody need to see one of the questions again? Oh, okay, you were responding to someone else. I'm sorry, Eric. I thought you were confused by the question. If people are, I'm sorry. One final thing, I'll send a reminder about this because people tend to forget. But actually, Sunday night when you hand in your paper, you need to do 2 things. You need to hand it in, of course, but you also need to post it to the week 3 peer review discussion board. Okay, which is here. It's activity 3.3. So literally, I think you should do it in one fell swoop. When you hand in your paper, just go to the discussion board, and you can either just copy and paste your paper right in there, or if you have it saved in some cloud-based service, you can give us the link to your paper. Most people probably copy and paste, so it's right there visible on the page, but either way is fine. I'll send out a reminder because so many people forget about this. But yeah, you'll be handing in the paper and posting it to the discussion board because week 3 we'll be giving each other feedback on each other's work. Okay, if people are comfortable with what we've gone over, if you don't have questions, you're allowed to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. I will hang out for a little bit and continue to ask questions, however. So thanks.